When you kind of take a step back and you see the way that people around Joe Biden used him for decades, all of these terrible things that happened, there was nobody home.
Let's release all the health records of President Biden, who is not president. I also want the health records of Donald Trump. Specifically, I want the records of his failed assassination attempt. You know, the bullet that grazed the ear.
With respect, you are beginning to sound like a mad conspiracy theorist.
There is an unbelievable layer of conspiracies here. The scandal is that the media ran in cahoots with the Democrat machine or the Biden machine or whatever you want to call it.
Trump is talking about Biden. The conservatives are talking about Biden. Everybody is talking about Biden. There is no scandal. There is no evidence of any scandal whatsoever. It's just more conservatives demonstrating again that they know nothing about medicine.
James Comey is a huge weirdo with artistic pretensions. Either Comey is the dumbest person on earth, or he knew what he was doing. And I want to be charitable. I think he kind of knew.
As a personal matter, everybody should feel nothing but genuine sympathy and concern for Joe Biden and his health. As a political matter, everybody should feel absolutely entitled to ask difficult questions. The Democratic Party, led by Joe Biden, said he was not only fit to be commander-in-chief, but to do it all again for another 4 years. Meanwhile, as Jake Tapper's book reports, he didn't recognise his friend and world-famous actor George Clooney. He forgot the names of even his closest and longest-serving aides. He was so frail, the staffers wanted to put him in a wheelchair and prevented even members of the cabinet from seeing him. The worries about his cognitive decline go back to at least 2019. Well, now we know that he probably had cancer for a large part of his presidency, but somehow, inexplicably, perhaps even defying credibility, it was not detected, or certainly not in a way that was related to the American public. Democrats are rightly upset that so much attention is being absorbed by the last president and not the current one. But who exactly is to blame for that? Oh, right, yeah, it's them, isn't it? The people who said Joe Biden was fitter than a racehorse and smart enough for Mensa at a time when he should have been probably in a nursing home. It's very fair to ask, why should anybody trust them ever again? We're here to thrash it out. As the host of the Michael Knowles Show on Daily Wire, Michael Knowles, the streamer and commentator Destiny, Wajahat Ali, the host of the Democracy-ish podcast, and the Rubin Report host Dave Rubin, whose Don't Burn This World tour is heading for Hungary, Israel and Australia, but disappointingly, I have to say, not to the United Kingdom as yet. But I await...
I thought you had me banned already. Isn't that what happened? We tried to come again.
No, we're all wokies are banned, but you're allowed in. Well, gentlemen, welcome to all of you. All been on Uncensored many times. Mike, let me start with you, Michael Knowles. It's a legitimate question. You know, I was appalled by the abuse, open mockery, and glee that greeted the news that President Biden has advanced aggressive cancer that's metastasized to his bones. Simply because on a human level, whether it was him or Donald Trump or anybody else, I just think if we've reached a point where the reaction to an elderly man potentially dying is treated with great glee when they've served 50 years as a politician, I just think, sorry, I think it crosses the line. However...
Piers, I didn't see a lot of glee in the reaction. I'm not even just flacking for the GOP. From the established mainstream guys, I saw a lot of concern, pray for Joe
I'm not
Biden
talking about mainstream. I'm talking about general, like, people on social media. And I think it's indicative of where social media has gone. It's become, as we all know, because we've all got big followings, it's become a sewer and a cesspit. Right. And I just think it's actually, interestingly to what you just said, it's incumbent on people who are in the more mainstream, if you like, and I would include all of us here in a way. It's important for us, I think, to try and moderate that kind of stuff as best we can by leading by example. However, it's an important example. However, I'm just not buying this sequence of events. When I saw Ezekiel Emanuel on MSNBC talking about the fact that from his position as a very, very eminent oncologist, it just defies credibility. They just discovered this about Joe Biden, that in his estimation, they probably knew about this or should have known or must have known for maybe 4 or 5 years, even before he got elected before. Just to me, none of this adds up because I've had PSA tests. I mean, I'm 60, right? I've had them in my 50s. Most men do. And if you're the president of the United States, you're getting test after test after test after test. So what do we think we're dealing with here?
I think J.D. Vance exemplified the right reaction here, which is you say, look, we pray for the guy who has cancer, and we're all headed for the dust at some point. So let's not be too cruel about it. But also, don't allow our sympathy to distract us from the legitimate political problem that we all have a right to discuss, which is we were lied to. We were lied to by the White House doctor. That White House doctor should probably lose his medical license. Either way, if you're telling me he somehow didn't catch it until moments ago, he's a terrible doctor or he's a liar. Either way, he needs to face serious consequences. The White House staff lied, the media lied, the Jake Tappers of the world lied, and that's a very serious problem because we already had very little trust in our established institutions after COVID. Now you've got the public health officials, the White House doctor, and you've got the White House staff yet again lying to us. One big irony in all of this, at a really low-end political level, the Democrats, when Biden's decline became clear, they decided to throw him out and replace him with Kamala Harris. And just knowing how life expectancy and metastatic cancer progresses, the Democrats would have had a much better chance getting Kamala Harris into the White House had they not instituted a coup d'etat on Joe Biden. Had they just been, I don't know, a little bit more straightforward about everything, they might have gotten what they wanted, but their deceit did them in.
Yeah, Wajahat, I mean, whichever way you look at this, it just stinks, the sequence of events, doesn't it? I mean, does anybody believe that they have suddenly discovered about a recent president of the United States, that he's got aggressive cancer in this manner? I mean, the White House said today, as come out and said, the last time not the White House, but Biden's people have come out and said the last time he had a PSA test was 2014 for fear it would be raised and raise concerns. I just don't believe that. Why would a man in his 70s not have another PSA test for 10, 11 years?
So I know we love conspiracy theories on this show, but let me just say first and foremost, as a father of a stage 4 cancer survivor, my daughter had a full liver transplant. When I left my daughter, she was perfectly healthy, 2 years old, 6 years ago, and then she had some bumps. My wife took her to the emergency room, and then they found out that she had stage 4 cancer. That's how it happens. So for anyone who is suffering from cancer, anyone who has a lost one, who died from cancer, sometimes it creeps up. That's number one for people to know, and hopefully people will know more about cancer as this Trump administration has cut 31% of cancer research in the first 100 days. Just want people to know that. Hopefully no one has to go through this. We went through it. Joe Biden right now has stage 4 cancer that has metastasized to the bone.
Sorry, with respect, Wajahat, let me stop you. You're distracting. You're very good at distracting. We're not a show that
No, not at all. I'm trying to inform your audience.
I'm not a show that loves conspiracy theories. I love talking about the reality behind conspiracy theories. Often conspiracy theories, as we've discovered in the last few years, turn out to be correct. So I'm prepared to give everything a fair hearing.
That is not true.
Well, they sometimes they do, right? Some conspiracy theories turn out to be true. And then the people who call them conspiracy theories sound like idiots. I don't like promoting wild, nonsensical conspiracy theories. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory to have expected a president of the United States in his 70s to have had a basic test that all men over the age of about 55 are encouraged to have on a regular basis. I don't believe them. And I think that is
enough. So
and if it turns out to be that
you might agree with me on this.
Go on.
You actually might agree with me on this. So here, let me just finish. Joe Biden is a very old man. Breaking news. He's 82 years old. I agree with you that Joe Biden should not have run or even announced that he was run for president, right? He was supposed to be a one-term president. I believe Joe Biden did immense damage to the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris by announcing at a very late stage that he wouldn't run, and he was pressured not to run. I think he made a huge mistake. He's 82 years old. Now, I'm all for fair and balance. And I don't know, I'm going to take my Republican counterparts, my MAGA counterparts out there at their word right now. Let's have fair and balance. I'm all here. Let's release all the public records. Let's release all the health records of President Biden, who is not president. Also, let's also focus on the man who's currently president, Donald Trump. He's the oldest person to ever be elected president. He's about to turn 79 years old. I want the health records of Joe Biden. I also want the health records of Donald Trump. Specifically, I want the records of his failed assassination attempt. You know, the bullet that grazed the ear. That is very traumatic for anybody, especially a 78-year-old man. Release all the health records. Number one. Number two.
Wow, you're sounding
Donald
like
Trump,
a man.
Sorry,
Wajahat. You are sounding
50-50.
With respect,
Let's do 50-50.
With respect, you are beginning to sound like a mad conspiracy theorist. Dry skin, deeper wrinkles, and crepiness are just a few of the visible signs of aging. Or so I'm told. Fortunately, today's show is sponsored by OneSkin. Their topical supplements are designed to help your skin feel and behave as if it's younger, a bit like this. Founded by an all-female team of scientists, OneSkin is the first and only skin longevity company to target cellular skin aging with their proprietary OS1 peptide. It's scientifically proven to decrease lines and wrinkles, boost hydration, and help with thinning skin. More than 4,000 people have given 5-star reviews for their full line of face, body, sun, and travel-size products. OneSkin believes that skincare is not just to improve how you look, but how to optimize skin biology at a cellular level. Well, we've teamed up to give you a 15% discount with the code PIERS, P-I-E-R-S, at checkout. Just go to oneskin.co. That's co with no M, oneskin.co.
Wait, no. I want the release of records.
What do you think?
Wait.
You don't think he was shot in the ear? You don't believe that? What are you getting at?
I agree he was shot in the ear.
What mad conspiracy are you pursuing?
I agree he was shot in the ear. We do not have the health records. Those health records were not made public. I agree he was shot in the ear. I was on your show. He was shot. He survived. Release the public health records of Donald Trump. Release the public health records of Joe Biden. I want to remind everyone. The oldest man to be elected is president right now, Donald Trump. Who did I say was cover-up? I'm saying, let's be honest. I'm taking you at your word.
I was trying to establish. Are you saying that you are agreeing with your MAGA counterparts that there was a cover-up on Joe Biden's ill health?
People do not trust the establishment. People do not trust the Democratic establishment. People do not trust the Republican establishment. I want Americans to be informed. I agree with you. Joe Biden is a very old man. He's 82 years old. I agree with you. He should not run again. I agree with you that the Democratic establishment probably hid his decline. We saw it in real time. But what I'm also seeing right now is unfair and unbalanced coverage. Because President Biden ain't president. Donald Trump is president. 78 years old, about to be 79, has never been on a bike, talks about groceries like he invented the word, he's brought it back,
well,
has fallen asleep.
You're steaming
Piers,
off.
I'm sorry.
Well, listen, you're going off on one of your you're very good at distracting. You're very good at distracting, but let me bring
Donald Trump has fallen asleep 3 times publicly in the past 3 weeks. He's 79 years old.
Donald Trump has the energy, as everybody knows, whether you love him or hate him, he's got the energy of a 30-year-old, right? So let's just not go down.
Tell him to ride a bike.
Yeah, Joe Biden.
Tell him to ride a bike.
Joe Biden was basically
Biden rode a
walking
bike last
zombie.
week. Tell him to ride a bike.
All right, let me bring in Dave Rubin.
Tell Donald Trump to ride a bike.
All right, which I'll give you a good hearing. Dave Rubin,
Well, Piers,
I think the point here, Dave, isn't it? It's just about the fact that there is a general belief, fueled by the Jake Tapper, Alex Thompson book that's coming out now, which many people look at them and say, well, you should have blown the whistle before. They kind of admit that. Both of them have admitted that, so I think credit to them for doing that. But what the book seems to reveal is what many of us said very publicly many times. Joe Biden was unfit to be president of the United States. Cognitively, physically, any other way you care to strip it. That matters. And the reason the cancer story now matters is if it turns out that they knew he had prostate cancer, which was metastasizing, we don't know when. And, to your point, Wajahat, I'm very glad that your daughter's okay. And I understand sometimes cancer comes on very, very fast. But she is not the president of the United States. When you're president of the United States, Dave, you get incredible medical treatment. And you get tested for just about everything all the time, precisely to ensure that you are fit and able to run the country. So I just cannot believe that a man who was president of the United States in his 70s did not have another PSA test after 2014 for one of the most prevalent cancers that affects elderly men. I just don't buy it. And if they're lying about it, then a lie was perpetrated on the American people, which is, I think, pretty serious.
Of course. First off, Piers, I want to say it's good to see you. I know we've been hitting each other a little bit on Twitter lately, but it's always fun to be on the show. As long as we're doing medical diagnoses here, I mean, I think we just saw a prime example of a symptom of Trump derangement syndrome. When someone is asked a question about what's wrong with Joe Biden's cognitive ability and now his metastatic cancer, we start talking about Donald Trump. So that's one issue. As to everything else you said, Knowles absolutely hit it it on the head. There is an unbelievable layer of conspiracies here, because either we are to believe that Joe Biden, the president of the United States, the 82-year-old president, former president of the United States, that his doctor was completely incompetent at every level, meaning he didn't catch what is now very, very advanced, very easy to catch prostate cancer. As you said, you're 60 years old, you've had these PSA tests.
Yeah.
I checked on Grok this morning. Grok recommends that men usually at about 45 years old. And that's what ChatGPT says as well. And you can talk to virtually any doctor that says that. Yeah, see, this is the kind of obfuscation that you guys do with everything. We all know that men somewhere in their 40s and 50s.
Did Grok follow it up with white genocide?
We all know that men in their 40s and 50s should be getting this test annually. So either his doctor was completely negligent and hid that, but it's not just that, because he was also either completely negligent or a buffoon or a criminal when it came to what was going on with Joe Biden cognitively. Why is it, Piers? I'm not from the future. I don't have a DeLorean or a flux capacitor or anything else. Why is it that in 2019, I was doing videos, you can find them online, of Joe Biden's cognitive ability? It's because everyone could see it right in front of our face, and they told us not to see. So there's multiple layers of conspiracy here. And as it pertains to Jake Tapper, and Alex Thompson is the guy that I guess co-wrote the book, and the poor guy, he's going into all these interviews with Jake, and he's just like, ooh, I hope they don't ask me a question. It's embarrassing, because the scandal is not just that doctor, she's a doctor, right? Dr. Jill Biden, and the insiders were hiding this. And what did Biden even know what he had or anything else? The scandal is that the media ran in cahoots with the Democrat machine or the Biden machine or whatever you want to call it. So there's multiple layers of a medical scandal, because there's more than one issues there, but there's multiple layers of, I would say, a cultural scandal, which pertains to how the White House released information and how the media used that information or hid that information.
I agree.
David, were those the videos that Russia paid you to make, or was that your original independent thinking?
Okay, let me do this, because you do this every time I'm on the show. You do know that the Department of Justice closed the case, and you do know that I'm talking about it right now, so that has nothing to do with me. But
and I would add a third. I would add a third. Do you know? I don't give a fuck. So let's just move back to the debate. Destiny.
So you weren't paid by Russia? Okay.
Look, good to know. If you want to ask him on your own show and ask him those questions again and again and again, go and do it on your own show, Wajahat. Let me bring in Destiny. Destiny.
Fair enough.
Destiny, I do think this matters. Do you?
I'm going to be honest. I haven't followed the news recently, and I lose track of this sometimes. Right now, who's the president? Is it Trump or is it Biden? Because every single day I turn the news on, Trump is talking about Biden, the conservatives are talking about Biden, everybody is talking about Biden. It feels like that is the only thing that these people can ever talk about, because they're trying to take away attention from Trump's disastrous econ policy,
there was a major
from the utter failures
Biden,
that he's
like
running into over and over and over again with all of the courts, with the insane arguments that they're putting in front of the Supreme Court, trying to get rid of things like birthright citizenship. But for some reason, we're talking about Biden again. Also, it's no surprise that conservatives are once again, there is no scandal. There is no evidence of any scandal whatsoever. It's just more conservatives demonstrating again that they know nothing about medicine.
There's no evidence of a scandal.
No, you don't need to explain anything while I'm giving my answer to Pierre's question. You say the man wasn't competent to be president. I'm curious, can you show me a single time when Joe Biden sat down and had EOs brought to him and explained to him that he'd never seen before, like we see Trump sign on an almost daily basis? One example of that.
Well, they didn't bring them to Joe Biden because an auto pen
Exactly. You have no
did it.
examples of that. No, you have no examples of that. Donald Trump is worse. Donald Trump is worse. That's great, but you can see videos of Biden explaining what's in the videos. Hold on, let me finish my answer. For all of these people that are so concerned about Biden's health, everybody got so offended when Elon Musk was asked about his ketamine abuse. So they said we had no right into the minds, the drug use, or the medical records of people that might be involved in major parts of the government, that he was involved in dismantling huge parts of the government. He was the president's right-hand man. Just right there, we just heard another pivot, another abdication of responsibility. The reality is conservatives know nothing about medicine. All of you guys on here are saying it's totally common to test for prostate cancer past 50. It's not. Past 70, it's not recommended. Believe it or not, and I know in the movies and in the TV shows, it seems like you can test for every single thing at every point in time. You can't test for every single thing at every point in time. You don't do that because you get a lot of false positives.
He's the president of the United States.
How long does that PSA test take you? When you do that PSA test annually,
it doesn't matter.
How long does that take you? Is that a big problem for the doctor?
It takes literally takes 3 minutes.
Over the age of 70, you do not test men for prostate cancer. It's just not recommended. You can't test for every
It is if you're the president of the United States and you've already had a test in 2014.
From ordinary human conditions? No, of course not. You can't test for every single disease at every single point of your life. Unfortunately, you just can't do that.
Okay, Michael, let me bring you back in here. I think, look, it's the conversation's been very revealing. Wajahat on massive distraction technique and Destiny basically saying old people shouldn't have tests that might save their lives.
Just to be clear, go to Google, look up, when do you test for prostate cancer? You don't test every. You can Google it right now. Put it on the program. Everybody can type it in the program.
A PSA test literally takes 10 seconds.
Joe Biden, who now has metastatic
blood test.
Cancer in his bones? Are you arguing they shouldn't have tested
It's a blood test. I bet the President of the United States probably has a weekly blood test. Probably. I'm guessing.
What do you think a blood test is? Do you think you can test for every single possible thing in your blood?
It is so easy to test for PSA. Your PSA literally is one thing. It's easy. If you're struggling with sleepless nights and exhausting days, you might want to try Beam's Dream Powder. Beam is proudly founded in America and run by people who value hard work, integrity, and delivering results. It's a healthy nighttime blend packed with science-backed ingredients to improve your sleep, so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. Dream is a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, apigenin, L-theanine, melatonin, and magnesium. It's designed to help you fall asleep and just stay asleep. We've teamed up to give you a massive discount of up to 40% for a limited time. So go to shopbeam.com/Piers, P-I-E-R-S, and use promo code Piers at the checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Piers. Use promo code Piers for up to 40% off. Sleep better, wake up stronger, and show up ready for your family, your work, and your country too. Anyway, look, I want to move on from this to James Comey talking of wild conspiracy theories. Just call me bonkers, Michael Knowles. I don't mind what you call me. But the idea that a man who was the director of the FBI, the top lawman in America, was wandering along a beach and saw some seashells with the numbers 8647. And he had absolutely no idea before putting it on his Instagram that this might be interpreted as meaning a desire to kill President Trump. Here's his explanation on MSNBC.
Was there anything in the back of your mind that said, maybe I just shouldn't post this?
Yeah, no, literally nothing, because it seemed entirely innocent and clever to me. I have never, and actually still don't associate 86 with violence, but because I heard that some folks were, whether they do that reasonably or not, I don't want any part of it. And so that's why I took it down from my Instagram account.
This is horseshit, Michael. He's just lying. He's lying.
Look, I want to be as fair and charitable as I can. James Comey is a huge weirdo with artistic pretensions. Do you remember when the Robert Mueller investigation came out? James Comey took this bizarre photo of himself in the woods looking up at the sky. So I don't want to understate the chance that he's just a weirdo. However, you have to take the context here in. If he says, well, 86, to get rid of somebody, that doesn't imply violence. Okay, maybe he's just kind of ignorant and obtuse, but within the context of President Trump, who was nearly murdered twice, one time with a bullet hitting his ear, coming within a 20th of an inch of blowing his brains out on stage. When you have the entire Democratic Party, all the way up to Joe Biden, who predicated his presidential campaign on the notion that Donald Trump posed an existential threat to the country, that is to say, justifies his assassination. Within that context, Comey had to know. Either Comey is the dumbest person on earth, or he knew what he was doing. And I want to be charitable. I think he kind of knew.
I don't want to be charitable. Sorry, Wajahat. This is bullshit. And you know it is, don't you? Come on, just admit it.
So, if MAGA does believe that James Comey was intentional in posting that and 86 means kill, then like I said in your last answer, I want everything to be fair and balanced. I'm trying to bring people together. Like you said in the last one, release every single information about Joe Biden's public health.
Do you believe James Comey when he says... Do you believe him when he Instagrammed the picture of 8647 the former FBI director had no idea what that meant?
You're going to like my answer. I'm fair and balanced here. if you truly believe, and if my co-panelists here, my MAGA co-panelists believe that James Comey intended, that 86 meant to kill Joe Biden, and you want to investigate him, I say fine. But then you also have to investigate Jack Posobiec. Oh, you know, the MAGA dude who literally sold merchandise while Joe Biden was president.
I'm not talking about him, Wajahat. Stop the distraction.
Wait a second.
Focus on the stories.
Stop being a hypocrite. If you think 86 means to kill, then you have to prosecute Jack Posobiec, who was making money off of mercendise that's at 86.46 while Joe Biden was president. Then you have to also investigate Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, let me finish. Matt Gaetz said 86, not Democrats. Matt Gaetz said 86 Republicans, including Mitch McConnell, right? So, and Kevin Johnson. So maybe if you want to prosecute James Comey, I'm being fair. If you want to prosecute James Comey, you got to prosecute Jack Posobiec.
But once again, Wajahat, you're not answering my simple question. Do you believe Comey or not? Yes or no?
I do not believe that James Comey and the overwhelming majority of people who liked that thought that it meant killing Donald Trump. The person who tried to kill Donald Trump was a Republican, a Trump supporter, a gun nut. It means 86. Donor. If anyone's worked in restaurants or is a waiter, 86 means to cancel an order. So if you believe 86 means to kill, then you got to prosecute Jack Posobiec and Matt Gaetz.
The reason that's not an apt comparison is because we're not saying in all contexts 86 always means you want to murder somebody.
Yeah,
we're saying that in the context of Donald Trump,
you guys are getting desperate.
Literally murdered twice.
You guys are getting desperate. Donald Trump is underwater, Michael and David.
In that case,
you guys are getting really desperate.
You guys keep bringing up that they tried to kill Donald Trump twice. You know what else happened twice? He got impeached twice as well. So maybe 86 could be in the third impeachment attempt.
All right, Dave Rubin.
All right. Well, first off, I'm really amazed by Wajahat's authenticity and honesty. It's really quite remarkable, and I'm sure nobody can see through it.
Russia didn't pay me. Just me.
The guy should have a pin over here. I told the truth. It's really incredible. You know, the other thing about 86, and I'm impressed. I doubt you ever worked in a restaurant. I did, and yes, it's true. If they don't have the porterhouse anymore, you 86 the porterhouse. That means you don't have it anymore. So the waiters know when they're going out there. But the other thing that the 86 came from was the 86th floor on the Empire State Building. And do you know what the 86th floor on the Empire State Building is? That's the observation floor. And that's where the mafia in the old days used to take guys that owed them some money and toss them off the roof of the Empire State Building. That is a fact. You can also check that on Grok or ChatGPT or whatever your favorite search engine is. Now, as to whether he meant literally when he was just wandering the beach and he magically sees these numbers and thought it was artistic and whatever else, as to whether he actually was trying, as the former FBI director, to instigate someone to kill Donald Trump, I can only leave that up to what is going on in his heart and in his soul. I suspect that's not the truth. I also am not somebody that wants to jail everybody for a bad joke or a stupid picture or anything else. So whether it was any of those people that you just mentioned that had done that previously, I'm not for jailing the guy for it, but I think we can call a spade and know that if the shoe was on the other foot, these people would be going absolutely crazy. Yeah. So I think this one is pretty clear.
No question. Okay, Destiny.
Maybe they should wear a MAGA hat. Maybe wear a MAGA hat and try to 86 the election and try to take out Mike Pence, you know, like the violent insurrectionist that Donald Trump pardoned and now has given $5 million.
I tell you what, if there was an Oscars ceremony for playing whataboutery, you, my friend, are the Daniel Day-Lewis.
Hypocrisy.
Of the
whataboutery Oscars.
All of this is a whataboutery. All of this is a whataboutery away from Donald Trump's presidency. Anything to discuss anything besides the multiple times he's referenced the Second Amendment, but besides the time he tweeted out the video of the tied up Joe Biden in the back of the truck.
It's a TV show, and they were doing a segment about what the former FBI
there's always an excuse. There's always a reason.
Best supporting whataboutery winner is you, Destiny. I want to talk quickly about a conspiracy theory, and you're going to like this, Wajahat, because this involves a conspiracy theory about Jeffrey Epstein and whether he did take his own life or not. Incredibly, and you might be startled by this, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, two people you probably think lead the charge in conspiracy theory spreading, investigated this and announced the following.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file.
So, Wajahat, there we have a wide-ranging conspiracy theory quashed by Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, unequivocally. I presume you, as a man who abhors conspiracy theories, unless you're spreading them about assassination attempts, you would like to immediately applaud them for clearing this up.
All I got to say is good luck, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, because never go full conspiracy theorist. This is going to be MAGA eating its own tail. You know the people are really pissed off, Piers? Not me, MAGA. Because MAGA wants the public records of the Epstein files. They were promised it. And now Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who promoted the conspiracy about the deep state, right, and pro-January 6th, now they are the deep state, head of the FBI and the deputy. And guess what? MAGA is pissed off. And the reason why, probably, they don't want to release these records is Jeffrey Epstein, according to his own words, you've heard the tapes, he said, who was his closest friend? Donald Trump. Who did he party with? Donald Trump. Who's on the flight logs?
Oh, my God,
Donald
you're
Trump.
about to
There's
spread the worst conspiracy theory of them all. Wow.
What? No, they're friends. You heard,
wow. Wajahat, are you suggesting Donald Trump killed Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what you're doing, having announced you hate conspiracy theories?
You said that.
Is that your position?
No, I think he killed himself. I think Dan and Kash Patel are actually honest. I think he killed himself. But MAGA's pissed off right now because MAGA was promised full release of the public files. Pam Bondi hasn't done it. Kash Patel hasn't done it. Dan Bongino hasn't done it. If you're paying attention to MAGA right now, they're divided right now, and they're going after Dan and Kash, and this is going to be a huge problem for MAGA. Not for the rest of us, not for the normies.
Hold on, I thought I was
the normies. I wouldn't be quite so hasty with that self-description.
I thought we're representative of MAGA. Can we get in on this?
Yes.
I'm not going after Dan and Kash. I don't know Kash personally. I know Dan pretty well, and I trust Dan. I don't think Dan would lie. You got to pay attention not only to what Dan and Kash said, but what they didn't say. They didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein's suicide was all on the up and up. They didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein didn't have connections to intelligence agencies. They didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't permitted to kill himself. The fact that you had malfunctions of multiple security cameras and multiple guards not showing up, they didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein didn't, as Alan Dershowitz suggested the other day, pay the guards off to allow him to kill himself. There's still all sorts of questions about it. There's very legitimate questions, unless you, Wajahat, think that the Jeffrey Epstein case was just open and shut and there's no reason to dig any deeper. Obviously, there are very legitimate questions about it. But what Dan and Kash said can be true, and there can still be much more to learn about the corruption that involves very, very high levels of government.
Well, the biggest conspiracy theory, which I think happens to be true, is that there were clearly a lot of very high-profile people who knew what Jeffrey Epstein was up to and have never been held to account. And it is completely ridiculous that the only person languishing in a prison in America for any connection to do with Epstein is Ghislaine Maxwell, his madame, who helped him facilitate a lot of this abuse and is quite rightly serving a very long prison sentence. But no man has ever, who was participating with him, has ever been brought to justice. I mean, that is ridiculous. I want to ask you, Destiny, about something that's just been dropping, which is about Bruce Springsteen told a UK crowd that Donald Trump was unfit and treasonous. Trump responded in his normal, calm, self-effacing manner, called him a dried-out prune of a rocker on Truth Social. Highly overrated. Bruce Springsteen, not a talented guy, just a pushy, obnoxious jerk. And then he posted this video. And my question, Destiny, is can you watch that with a straight face? And it appears you can. Did you not find that even vaguely funny?
Every time I see a picture of the 9% body fat, 180-pound, rippling muscled Trump, because of the very real medical report we saw that assessed his physical condition, I'm in awe of him. I do agree with what Bruce Springsteen said, though. And I think the courts are basically reaffirming this, that Donald Trump is doing everything he can to destroy rule of law in this country. And that's why we are so desperate to talk about literally anything else, even if that's the prostate of the former president, than what Trump's current behavior
I've got a question for you, just to see whether your own health and whether your own Trump derangement syndrome is at an advanced aggressive stage. And it's this. Do you give Trump any credit for reducing the number of illegal people coming over the southern border by 96% in 3 months? Yes or no?
It's a strange question.
Not really. It's a very simple...
It kind of is.
It's a very simple, factual question. he has done that.
If you had cancer of the brain and I cut your head off, would you give me credit for getting rid of the cancer? I mean, wow. I guess. I mean, illegal immigration is definitely...
You don't think it's an achievement?
Illegal immigration has definitely decreased. All of our tourism has decreased. If part of the reason why the immigration or illegal immigration has decreased is because nobody wants to come to this country anymore because they can see it's turning into a massive shit show, I mean, does he get credit for that? I guess, sure.
Piers, can I defend it?
Yes, you can.
I think it has to do with the foreign terrorist
listen,
organization.
as a
I don't think even, to be honest with you, Dave, it doesn't even have to be defended. Obviously,
it doesn't have to be defended.
Obviously, it's a stunning achievement, which everybody should say is a great achievement.
I'm a laminated, card-carrying member of MAGA. I go to the meetings with Knowles. He brings the cigars. I bring the tequila. We talk about these people. Look, I can easily defend
Just like
the border.
I
can easily defend the trade deals. Right? I can easily defend what he's doing in the Middle East. I can easily defend what he's doing with Russia, Ukraine. I can easily defend what he's doing as it relates to getting wokeness out of the schools and blowing apart the Department of Education.
Wants to host a debate
you
on
can
that,
defend all of those things very easily.
Any one of these topics, Dave, all of these
Can
are
you defend this, Dave Rubin?
The entire world market is shuddering.
Dave Rubin.
The bonds market is shuddering as a result of these things. Nobody agrees.
Well, actually, the stock market is actually
the
stock market's actually doing fine. Now everyone's calmed down and stopped shaking and screaming. It's actually fine.
All the losses were erased.
Dave Rubin, quick question though. The really big
debate. To be clear, the markets are not fine, but go ahead.
Well, they are.
Dave
Rubin, straightforward question. The most contentious thing of all, is the boss, Bruce Springsteen, overrated?
Yes, he's overrated. First off, I'm a Long Island guy, so you go to Billy Joel as the default. But any day, you know who I will take over Bruce Springsteen any day? About a month ago, I had the honor of interviewing 90-year-old Frankie Valli, and that guy is still out there performing.
Yeah, but his voice is gone.
He's doing it every night on the road.
Yeah, but his voice is gone. The boss, I mean, come on, Wajahat, can we find common ground? I think Bruce Springsteen's fantastic. I don't agree with his view about Trump. But I don't think Trump's right to call him overrated.
Great.
Go to a Journey
Bruce
concert.
Springsteen, look at his catalog. Fantastic catalog. You could disagree with his politics, but how can you knock an American icon, Bruce Springsteen? And show me that you're out of touch without telling me, and I'll show you Dave Rubin. He'll go for Frankie Valli instead of Bruce Springsteen. But all right, that's how you win over the kids.
They were great.
Yes.
Jersey Boys is one of the all-time great movies too.
That means you're out of touch because Frank Sinatra is old and dead. Yeah, that's really terrible if you listen to him.
Yeah,
Frankie Valli,
total legend. But Michael Knowles, the boss, overrated?
I love Thunder Road, okay? It's a great song, and I love Atlantic City, even though I think the band did a better version than Bruce Springsteen did. So, look, I like the boss. I think he's pretty good. I also agree he's a little bit overrated. People try to make him into Bob Dylan. He's not really Bob Dylan, and he does kind of look like a dried-up prune. So I think what Trump said is true, although I still love my Jersey Shore bops.
Okay, Destiny, can we find any common ground here? Is the boss overrated?
Listen, I grew up listening to Linkin Park and Third Eye Blind and these other bands, okay? So it's out of my generation, unfortunately. I have no strong opinion here.
Here, Piers, in the spirit of bringing us together, I want to send Wajid a gift after the show. I don't know have his mailing address, but I just wrote "You Tried" and I signed it on a piece of paper here. So can you guys just get this to his people? Would that be possible? Because he tried real hard today, and that's important.
Did you write it, or was it in Russian? Do it in Russian for me. It'll be more authentic.
Still trying. I'll even sign it again.
Comrade Rubles. Do it in Russian, and I'll believe you.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, look at this guy.
Just leave it at Comrade Rubin. I think that's got a nice little ring to it, actually. Gentlemen, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Take care.
Thanks.
Well, joining me now in the Uncensored studio is Jason Miller, the long-serving senior advisor to President Trump. Jason, great to see you here in London. Why are you here?
Here to see Ambassador Warren Stevens, incoming ambassador to the Court of St. James, the U.S. ambassador to the UK. Great guy. I think he's going to be a fantastic representative for the United States and for the Trump administration.
A lot of people talk about the special relationship, UK-US. Some people have tried to kind of downplay it now, poo-poo it, say that it doesn't really exist how it used to be. What's your view of the US-UK relationship?
Well, I think we see the fact that the U.S. and UK have already gotten off to a good start with the trade deal that they're able to put together. And I think one of the things to keep in mind with President Trump is he always sometimes is a little tougher on his allies than you might normally think. And that's because he thinks many of the allies have had unfair trade relationships and things of this such. And so if he sees a way to go and open up markets for agriculture and for make it a little more fair for cars being sent to the U.S., and he's going to take that. But he very much loves UK. Keep in mind that his mother, of course, is from Scotland. And so, no, this is a special relationship. And I think with the ambassador coming in and with the president back in the White House, it's going to be a lot better than it was under Biden or Obama or any of the Democrats in the past.
He's got a state visit that's been promised by the UK Prime Minister. Do we have a date yet for that? Do you know?
Don't know exactly. I think it's going to be somewhere potentially in September is what I've heard, but I've not heard a formal date yet.
Let's talk about the Trump presidency 2.0, because the first one was marred by sort of mayhem, almost all of it, leading to actual mayhem with the pandemic. But mayhem in the sense that Donald Trump was completely different to any other president we'd seen. The reaction from the liberal world was a kind of collective anaphylactic shock. All sorts of stuff was hurled at him, and it became a kind of mutually abusive thing for quite a while. I think he would have won that election in 2020 without any problem at all without the pandemic. But there was the pandemic. And then there was all the fallout, and we won't relitigate all that. But it struck me, speaking to him, particularly after he got shot last summer, that there were two things, I think, when he won. One was he got a second chance at life, literally, where he'd been shot, grazed the ear, and survived, and it killed somebody behind him. That changes anybody, I don't care who you are. And secondly, the scale of the win, winning absolutely everything he could have won, including the popular vote. I detected in Donald Trump, and you know him better than anybody, but I detected in him a real sense of validation from the American people to now do what he wanted to do. Is that your assessment?
Yeah, and people frequently ask me that question, what's different between the first time and this time, just in the way that you did. Really, it's the fact that he's done this before. I know sometimes we talk in whether it be in the media or different places, like, oh, they say they need this experience, you have to find out how things work. As President Trump started running for this time, going to his third campaign in the second presidential term, he knows exactly what he wants to do. That makes all the difference. So, for example, and he doesn't rely on people that he's never met before to staff various positions. So him knowing exactly the directionally, and to your point, the mission. It's a mission this time. It's not just a set of issues. There's truly a calling that he feels that he has to go and do. The other thing, too, is quite frankly, the team that he put him around him this time is a lot better. You look at Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, the best chief of staff easily that he's ever had. But even these members of the cabinet, the difference in that first term, I think a lot of them signed up and said, maybe I can pull President Trump the direction into my beliefs and my worldview. We saw this with folks like McMaster, John Bolton, things like that. This time, people who signed up are doing it because they support what he believes. That's the big difference.
I was in Qatar for the state dinner there. And I was very struck, not just by how popular he was there and how well received and how gracious he was to his host, but also the speech he made in Saudi Arabia I thought was really significant, where an American president went on the record and said, the days of Western neocons telling or bombing their way into telling the Middle East how to lead their lives are over under my administration. It's time to look at these countries and see what they're doing organically from within, and to actually embrace and celebrate that and to go with it was pretty much the gist of that speech. That was a significant speech.
It really was. And by the way, Ross Worthington, who's his lead speechwriter, really one of the, I think, the unheralded heroes within the administration and through the first one as well. But keep in mind 2016, when President Trump first ran, this was something that as a traditional Republican I was kind of shocked by initially. Keep in mind, a big part of the reason he won, because he ran against the foreign policies, the failed foreign policies of Democrats and Republicans. And it was key. Every time he would say that, he'd hit the Democrats and the Republicans, because what he realized that most of America thought these idiots in D.C. were sending us off into war after war, conflict after conflict. Why are we sending this money, spending this money? But what President Trump realizes, no, we don't need the geniuses who caused all these problems. Let's come up with some different ideas. And you saw that, the fact that we've really taken that, a lot of this conflict off the table. But that speech was particularly remarkable, in my opinion, because it shows how one election can save thousands, if not millions of lives, just one election.
It also, it showed me what his general worldview is, which is, unusually for a modern American Republican president in particular, he really does prefer peace to war. In other words, if he can avoid warfare, he will. He wants to be strong. He wants America to be strong. But, I say to my liberal friends, do you not think this is a good thing that Donald Trump is trying to find peace in Ukraine, trying to find peace in the Middle East? What would you rather he be doing? Because if he was bombing everywhere, you'd be going absolutely nuts. In other words, obviously he can't win with them. But I do think he's not getting enough credit for essentially being a permanent driver of peace. That's really what he is on the world stage, I think.
So, very notable, and the single most important thing we've seen so far in this presidency is that President Trump has said that he wants his legacy to be that he was the peacetime president, that he was the peacemaker. I don't remember ever hearing that or even reading about that in the history books. And also the genius way that he talks about the framing when he speaks with the American people. So, for example, leading up in the first 2 years of the Russia-Ukraine war, we've seen people come out and say, these territories should be kept, these territories should be ceded, this is how you win, this is how you define things. He said, guys, this is a bunch of BS. How do we stop the killing?
Yeah.
Real simple, real direct, in a way that people can understand. And you see the genius of that. You could put 100 foreign policy experts in a room. Not one of them would have said something as straightforward as, how do we stop the killing?
And he does feel it on a human level, because I talked to him when he first got back into the White House, and he'd had briefings about the number of people being killed on the battlefield in Ukraine on both sides. And he was horrified that all these young men, predominantly, were just getting slaughtered almost in a way we hadn't seen since the First World War. It was kind of like Flanders out there, just open fields and people being mown down to death, thousands and thousands per week. And I was struck by, on a human level, he really did affect him. He genuinely did want the killing to stop. It wasn't some kind of marketing thing for him.
Well, keep in mind is that later on, or the more recent that we get, everything's on social media now. Everything's on YouTube. You can see these young soldiers, whether it be Ukrainian, whether it be Russian, these people that are going off to war and they're being killed. They're not being returned to the families. You see the sobbing mothers. They're saying, when is my son or when is my daughter going to come home? But going back to Ukraine for a moment, it's in addition to the hundreds of thousands that have been killed, you think about the infrastructure that's been destroyed. You also have about 1 million, maybe a little bit, 1.1 million women and children who've left Ukraine. They're never coming back. Piers, there's an entire generation of Ukraine that is gone, and they are never coming back. So the president looks at that and he's like, this is completely destroying this country. Think what happened to them after World War I, World War II, going into the fall of the Soviet Union. I mean, we have to stop this. And the other thing, too, here's the thing that the president knows. When you have peacetime, then you have investment, you have stability, and you have a good financial marketplace. When you have wartime, everyone clenches up, they sit on their money, and they don't spend it. That's a problem for the global economy.
We're seeing a lot of the usual suspects coming out attacking Donald Trump. Neil Young has just joined in the feud started by Bruce Springsteen. What are you worrying about, man? He said to President Trump. Bruce and thousands of musicians think you're ruining America. You worry about that instead of the dying kids in Gaza. That's your problem. I'm not scared of you. Neither are the rest of us. You shut down FEMA when we needed it most. That's your problem, Trump. Stop thinking about what rockers are saying. And he goes on. What struck me about that was, well, he can't really avoid it. If the rockers keep coming out attacking him, then obviously, being Donald Trump, he's going to respond. Point one. But secondly, do you think these guys have just slightly missed the mood of the room? When Donald Trump won by the scale he won, it seemed to me that it was a real repudiation of the celebrity power the Democrats had always relied on to win elections. They wheeled out the big guns this time. They had Taylor Swift, they had Oprah, they had all of them, and it didn't work. So when I see these guys, I'm like, you know what? I think you're howling into the wind.
Well, as anything in pop culture, whether it be an actor, whether it be a musician, they need to just stay good at what they're doing, which is be popular to everybody. They like everybody. When they go into a different arena, that's when they start to lose fans. I mean, keep in mind that when President Trump blasted Taylor Swift back during the campaign, her favorability's dropped. President Trump is now more popular than Taylor Swift. If you had asked me that 2 years ago, I don't think I would have thought that had been something that we would have seen happen. But it's just the whole celebrity culture. People realize they live in la-la land, literally and figuratively. They do not represent anything they stand for. They might have money to fly around on their private jets and talk about climate change, But that's not how most people are when they're worried about the Bidenflation and everything else is crushing our economy.
You mentioned Biden there, this big book coming out about Biden's cognitive decline. A lot of criticism of the mainstream media for not reporting the story properly. I certainly did. It was pretty obvious to me, even sitting here in London half the time, that he was clearly not up to running the country. This story about his cancer, on a human level, obviously your heart goes out to the guy. If he's in his 80s, he's got aggressive prostate cancer, it's gone to his bones. This is a serious health crisis. But I've noticed that everyone immediately, because of the lack of trust, has turned to a narrative of he couldn't have just found this out. This doesn't stretch credulity. Do you think the American people have been lied to about this health matter for years, as some believe?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's no credibility from Biden's doctor, particularly the doctor who oversees him is Dr. Kevin O'Connor. So this was the same doctor who, by the way, was in business with one of Biden's brothers, who for years was telling us that Biden was fine. Cognitively, there were no issues. He is as fit as a fiddle. And then he, after all these exams and checkups, just never happened to notice that this cancer had been there. And we saw Ezekiel Emanuel, Rahm's brother,
I saw that
who came out with some very pointed words saying that any doctor worth their weight in salt
would have known for 4 or 5 years.
Would have known for quite some time. And the sad thing here is when you kind of take a step back and you see the way that people around Joe Biden used him for decades. Biden Inc. was literally, it was a family business. It was a whole infrastructure of people around. They fed this. They allowed this to happen. And look, we might talk about politics and the media covers things, but you think of the Laken Rileys, you think of the Jocelyn Nungries, you think of the Rachel Morans, the young women who were killed by these illegals that came across the border. Was that even something that Joe Biden did or something that someone signed for him with an auto pen? You think about the various the failures of, say, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. You think about the record-setting inflation. All of these terrible things that happened, there was nobody home for President Biden. And I think that was a damn shame because there are real consequences. If you have the wrong person in the White House, we saw that with the 4 years of Joe Biden, that could have been stopped if these people had said something. But here's the thing, Piers. They were all making money off it. They're either making money off it or they're getting a great position in government. That's a damn shame. The other thing that I'm upset about is a lot of folks in the media now making money off of this, or, well, we saw this all along. No, you didn't. Stop the nonsense. You would come after folks like myself and the president and other people in his orbit for pointing out the obvious. He cannot walk up a flight of stairs. It was worse than Chevy Chase back on Saturday
It was
Night Live.
obvious.
It was terrible.
I wrote column after column in the New York Post saying, sorry, this guy's not fit to hold this office, physically, cognitively, anyway. It was obvious to everybody. The Trump DOJ lawyer, Leo Terrell, has actually floated the idea of criminal charges against Dr. Jill Biden over elder abuse in relation to Biden's treatment of cancer diagnosis. Your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't want to get into the DOJ lane. But I know that since Dr. Jill Biden was too busy running all the cabinet meetings, then she probably didn't have time to oversee all of the medical dynamics as well. But I'll leave that to the lawyers on that one.
How is Donald Trump? I saw him in Qatar, and he was doing a meet and greet for about 400 people. I could tell about halfway through, he was like, are there many more of these hands to shake? But when I got there, we were laughing, and I said, hey, how are you? And he said, I'm good. He said, we're getting stuff done. We're getting stuff done. Like you said, he seemed like a man on a mission, and he doesn't really care, I don't think, too much this time about what other people think or say. He thinks he's got his team in place, whether it's the tariffs, whether it's the attempt to forge peace in the Middle East, in Ukraine, whether it's tax cuts in America, whatever it may be. He's going big and bold and fast and furious. Where do you see this landing, say, by the end of this year? Where would he like it to be?
Well, I think there are a couple of fronts. Number one is the economy. We want to make sure we've reversed the trend that Biden had us on. Obviously, they're going through the process on Capitol Hill with the House and the Senate of all the budget matters in the U.S. Need to go and extend those Trump tax cuts. Otherwise, you'll have the largest tax increase in American history. I think also, too, there are some places where the president really wants to get these peace deals done. As we've talked about before, he sees himself as the ultimate peacemaker. But I think also, too, some of these wins have come much quicker than anyone thought. Who knew?
Well, the border.
The border. You could secure the border.
But you know
in
why
hours.
people? He's not getting anywhere near enough credit. And again, I say to my liberal friends, you should give him credit where he deserves it. You can dislike him as much as you want. You can dislike the rhetoric and all the rest of it. But if you can't give an American president of either persuasion credit for reducing the number of people coming over the southern border illegally by 96% in under 3 months, then your bias is too overwhelming to even be taken seriously, I think.
So you make a good point, because typically for an American president, and this is kind of a dirty secret, that the moment that they win that first election, everything goes into re-elect mode, whether people say it out in front or behind the scenes. But here, President Trump knows that he has 4 years, and now we're down to, 3 3/4, that he has a finite window to go and bring about this change. There's also something that really is fundamental the way he looks at the world, is that looking back at the decades of failure, again, politicians, both parties, not saying the Republicans have been perfect, there have been a lot of bad Republicans also, but he realizes that if he doesn't do it now, we might not have someone else to come along who has that same determination and the ability to say, you know what, I don't care what I get attacked for, I'm going to get it done. He knows this is the window, we have to do it now.
Final question. You've been involved in all his campaigns, all 3 of them so far. Will there be a 4th, Jason Miller?
Well, of course, I'll defer to what the president says. If I'm called, I'll be ready to roll.
If he did decide to try and run again, you'd be there.
Oh, of course, anything that the president's doing. But I think he's focused on the 4 years. Again, he's kind of made his own comments on that. But of course, if he calls, you can't do 3 and then sit out a 4th.
Jason Miller, great to see you in London.
You,
look forward to meeting your new ambassador here.
Sounds good.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.